In recent days, the news surrounding West Ham has been particularly lively. The club has reached a decisive point in the season with plenty of speculation about reinforcements, possible departures, and even questions regarding manager Graham Potter, who is still trying to stamp his identity on the team. The feeling is that patience in modern football is becoming ever shorter. In the past, managers were given time to work even when going through rough patches, but today the scenario is completely different. A good example is the legendary John Lyall, who managed West Ham for many years. He endured 2 relegations and yet remained in charge, even going on to win the FA Cup. Nowadays, it is hard to imagine a manager being afforded such backing. Just a poor run of results is enough for the pressure to mount and the job to be at risk. As the saying goes, time has become a luxury that managers no longer have. Meanwhile, the board remains active in the market. One name that caught the eye was Matheus Fernandes, a midfielder at Southampton. West Ham put forward an offer worth around £32.5 million, including bonuses, but the rival club immediately turned it down. The negotiation does not appear simple and has raised doubts among supporters. Is it worth persisting with such an expensive and complicated target, or would it be better to look for more accessible alternatives? These debates, in fact, have been a constant theme in recent analysis. Another moment that surfaced was a humorous video recalling situations from the past. Back then, for example, when Paul Goddard picked up an injury, the solution was to gamble on Frank McAvenny, who went on to become a key figure and formed a historic partnership with Tony Cotty. Situations like that show how football sometimes surprises us. Players who are not priorities end up becoming protagonists. Moving on to the latest rumors, one name that has gained attention is Jonathan Rowe, a young forward who's shown for Norwich City and also featured for England's under-21 side winners of the European Championship. Last season, he moved to Olympique de Marseille, but his spell was not as smooth as expected. Internal tensions arose. The video even mentioned a disagreement involving Adrien Rabiot, and the French club are now considering moving him on. Rowe is only 22 years old and has already shown plenty of potential. For Marseille, he made 30 appearances, scored 3 goals, and provided 4 assists. The numbers are not spectacular, but his ability to play in several attacking roles stands out. He can operate on the left, on the right, or even more centrally as the focal point in attack. In the under-21 Euros, he even featured as a center forward at times. His playing style is direct, fast, and very purposeful. He often cuts inside from the wing to shoot powerfully with his opposite foot, a skill set currently lacking at West Ham. It is no surprise then that the board view him as a potentially strong signing. The asking price is around 20 million euros, considered reasonable in today's market. However, competition is fierce. Bologna have already advanced in talks, reportedly agreeing personal terms with the player, according to Fabrizio Romano. The sticking point lies in the fee the Italian club do not wish to pay the full amount demanded by Marseille. This leaves the door open for other clubs to hijack the deal, and West Ham have been mentioned among the interested parties. For many, fans Rowe would be a perfect fit for the current squad, especially due to his pace and versatility. However, despite the desire, the perception is that the chances of seeing him in a Hammer shirt this window are slim. Bologna are in a stronger position, and West Ham so far have not shown the same urgency to get the deal done. In any case, Rowe's name helps to illustrate the type of profile the club are after young players with potential capable of playing in different roles and adding something new to the squad. In his case, pace and verticality. Now it remains to be seen whether the board decide to push forward or instead look for alternatives in the market. If in the first part the spotlight was on Jonathan Rowe, now the conversation shifts to another player who could significantly shake up West Ham's squad left back Emerson Palmieri. Reports have emerged suggesting that Olympique de Marseille are seriously considering making a move to sign him before the transfer window closes. The French press point to the Brazil-born Italy international as one of the club's priority targets. The reason is clear. Marseille recently lost a key player in that position. Left-back Quentin Merlin, who had arrived in January and quickly established himself, was sold to Rennes for around £30 million. That move triggered a domino effect. Rennes, after securing Merlin, released Adrian Truffert to Bournemouth, and the Cherries in turn allowed Hungarian Milos Kerkez to be transferred to Liverpool. A true chain of transfers that ultimately left Marseille with a glaring gap at left back. In this context, Emerson emerges as an immediate solution. The player already knows Ligue 1 while having spent a season on loan at Lyon from Chelsea before signing permanently with West Ham. This previous experience eases adaptation and boosts the French club's confidence that he could take on the role without major difficulties. From West Ham's perspective, the situation opens up room for reflection. Emerson has been a useful player, but he's not considered untouchable. Moreover, the club has been giving increasing opportunities to homegrown youngsters. Oliver Scarles, for instance, is seen as one of the brightest prospects. At 18, he already has minutes with the first team and shows similar qualities: great energy, good attacking support, and personality on the pitch. Another name mentioned is Dio, who can also provide cover at left back. And then there is MK, a youth academy player who, according to internal reports, is the fastest athlete in the entire club. His pace and attacking mindset stand out, and some argue that before long he could become a concrete option for the senior squad. With this trio available, West Ham feel more comfortable at least listening to offers for Emerson. The decision, however, is not straightforward. Letting a starter go always carries risk, especially in a season that promises to be grueling with the Premier League, domestic cups, and European competitions. At the same time, the club must manage its wage bill and leave room for the development of young players. Emerson is experienced with Champions League pedigree, a European Championship title with the Italian national team, and spells at top-level clubs. For that reason, his departure would represent both a technical loss and a shift in the squad's profile. For the player himself, a transfer to Marseille would also make sense. He would have the chance to return to a league he already knows, with the opportunity to play regularly for one of France's biggest clubs. Olympique, despite being in a rebuilding phase, continue to compete in European tournaments and have an ambitious project. For a 30-year-old player, such a proposal could be highly attractive. For West Ham fans, the question remains, would parting ways with Emerson now be a risky step or an opportunity to accelerate the squad's renewal process? The fact is that the club are not in a position to simply dismiss the possibility. The window still has a few days of activity left, and French interest is likely to intensify. The outcome, therefore, is still open, but the chances of seeing Emerson in a Marseille shirt this season are very real. After discussing Jonathan Rowe and Emerson Palmieri, it is now time to address what is perhaps the most delicate case of this transfer window for West Ham, the situation of goalkeeper Alphonse Areola. The Frenchman had been strongly linked with Paris FC, a club newly promoted to Ligue 1, Ligue 1. The Parisian side, seeking to strengthen themselves with the support of investors, wanted a high-profile goalkeeper to lead the squad. The initial plan was to bring him in on loan with an option to buy clause. The main issue, however, was always Areola's salary. He earns around £120,000 per week, a figure Paris FC were not prepared to cover in full. There was the possibility of West Ham shouldering part of that cost, but negotiations never progressed. While talks were still ongoing, Paris FC ended up signing another big name, German goalkeeper Kevin Trapp, a former teammate of Areola's at Paris Saint-Germain. Trapp signed a 3-year deal and is expected to earn around £60,000 per week, almost half of what Areola currently makes in London. Trapp's arrival ended any chance of Areola joining the French capital club. Another potential destination considered was Espanyol, who were also in the market for an experienced goalkeeper. However, the Catalan side ended up securing the signing of Serbian Marko Dimitrovic, formerly of Sevilla, who came in to take over the starting role. It is worth noting that Dimitrovic had previously been linked with English football, but ultimately built his career in Spain. Curiously, part of the media even confused his past mentioning Charlton Athletic, but in reality his entire career trajectory had been shaped in clubs on the Iberian Peninsula. With Dimitrovic's arrival, Espanyol filled the gap left by the departure of John Garcia, a young Spanish goalkeeper sold to Barcelona at the start of the summer. Thus, the doors to La Liga also closed for Areola. Faced with these setbacks, Areola's stay at West Ham has become the most likely scenario. The club had in fact already begun making inquiries about possible replacements in case his departure materialized. The most talked about name was Piers Charles, the young Sheffield Wednesday goalkeeper and already a Northern Ireland international. At 20 years old, he is regarded as a promising talent, but the Owls were unwilling to let him leave at this stage, which stalled any potential move. With no replacement in sight, the board do not intend to allow Areola to leave. The reasoning is straightforward. There's no sense in losing a high-level goalkeeper without having another ready to step in. This is especially true in a season that could require rotation between the Premier League domestic cups and European competitions. Therefore, the outlook is clear. Areola will remain a West Ham player at least until January. This provides stability to the squad, but leaves lingering uncertainty over his long-term future. After all, he would certainly like to be an undisputed first choice in order to have a genuine chance of returning to the French national team, particularly with the World Cup in mind. Until that happens, the club and the goalkeeper move forward together in a relationship which for now remains intact, but which could once again come under question in the next window.